All right, so how you guys doing this morning?
Good.
A little tired?
Yeah.
There's never a right time to speak. I tell this people all the time. It's like when you start speaking this early, then it's like your job is to try to wake everybody up, right? If you get asked to speak around 10:30, 11, what's everybody thinking about by 10:30, 11 o'clock? Lunch, right? And so if you get asked to go speak somewhere around 1 or 2, what's everybody thinking about around 1 o'clock? Going home, taking a nap, right? So there's no right time to speak. But I saw a bunch of you guys walking in. But the advantage that I have is it's AVID. See, I've been speaking to young people for quite a while, and there's really only 2 types of young people you're going to speak to, right? And it's kind of like, you guys are kind of like babies, actually. Yeah, and I don't mean that as a criticism. You took it as a compliment. You're like, God, I totally saw my cheeks like a baby, right? So not like that, but you guys ever like had to feed a younger sibling like a baby? They're still in their infancy. Think about when it's time to feed a baby. You're only going to get 1 of 2 responses, right? There's no gray area with babies. When it's time to feed a baby, you're going to get 1 response when they're not hungry, which is what? What do the babies do when you're trying to feed them and they're not hungry?
Spit it out.
Yeah, they spit it out. They start trying to slap you, and if they could speak, they'd say other words, right? But they do everything they can. They'll tighten their lips as tight as they can. They will do everything they can so that you don't feed them because they're not hungry. But every once in a while, it's like perfect timing, baby. Because what happens when you try to feed a baby at the same time that they're really hungry?
They eat it.
They eat it. And you can't feed enough. I remember cracking jars for my son, like, man, here's like split pea, something I know he's not going to eat when he's 4, right, when he knows better. But he was just eating it like crazy. You can't crack open enough jars because they just want to eat and eat and eat. So when I speak to young people, it's either one or the other. It's always either one or the other. What I have found when I started doing the speaking thing, I started speaking to a lot of kids that were in gangs, a lot of kids that were using drugs, a lot of kids that just didn't care about education. And teachers were asking, some of you were like, that's me, fool, right? Hopefully not. But when I started doing that, it's like, man, like you guys aren't interested in what I have to say. So much of the work was trying to get kids to care, but they didn't. It's like trying to feed a baby when they're not hungry, right? But coming and speaking to AVID, because how many of you guys, is everybody here in the AVID program? Pretty much? Is there anybody that's not? Okay. So what I have found is AVID kids generally are the opposite. Because how many of you guys know by now that moving forward in life and experiencing some success is important? How many of you guys at least know that? Okay. So I don't have to convince anybody that school matters, do I? Is there anybody that needs convincing that drugs are bad for you? Put your hand down, bro. Work with me, right? So nobody needs convincing that drugs are bad. Everybody knows that school and setting goals is really important. Pretty much? Awesome. Well, you guys have been great. Thank you so much. Just kidding. Thank you. Thank you. No. But one of the things that when I come speak to guys that are, because the world, let me just say this, the world is changing. The world is changing. Okay, if you and I met when I was in your grade, here's what you would have saw if I was, because you guys are freshmen. Okay, here's what you would have saw if I was a freshman. You would have